When a park chooses their new coaster's name, it's not a decision to be made lightly. That's a key when it comes to marketing. You want to get people excited to come out and ride, and most of that is the ride itself, but it does matter what you call it. A couple years ago, we already went over the best and worst coaster names. This video isn't about that. This is about accuracy. What names just nail the essence of the coaster, and what names completely miss the mark. That's what we're looking for today. These are the most accurate and inaccurate coaster names. First, I want to thank Lord of the Rides for this video idea. I also want to reward creativity. You gotta nail it, but you gotta be sneaky about it. For example, Spinner at Skara Summerland is in fact a spinner. By definition, it should be number 1 on this list, but that's lame, so it's not on here. Let's go over some names that aren't quite that lame, but are a bit too on the nose to make the official list. Twister at Knoebels. This is indeed one of the most twisted wind coasters I've ever seen. It was so busy twisting you around, diving over, under, and through itself. It didn't have time to shell out any airtime. Skyrush at Hershey Park. It's clear they didn't know what to call this thing, so they just describe what the cable lift hill does. It rushes you to the sky. Switchback at ZDT's amusement park. They crammed this wooden coaster into pretty much no land. So, to make it longer, they put a vertical spike in the middle and have the train switch back. High Roller at the Stratosphere. This one is pretty clever, being in Vegas. A high roller being someone who makes big bets, but also describing this coaster that sits on a 1,000-foot perch. Gatekeeper at Cedar Point. I almost put this on the list, and then thought, nah, it's too on the nose. It's a cool name, and this ride literally keeps the gate. You gotta pass right under it to get inside Cedar Point. And then we got a bunch of names that imply the ride is big, even if it wasn't the biggest at the time. I give you more points if you're out there setting records. Behemoth at Canada's Wonderland. It was the biggest coaster in the park when it opened, so I'll give them that. Titan at Six Flags Over Texas. I always had Titan in my head as a great coaster name pre-2001. Just a great name for a huge coaster, so I wasn't too happy with Over Texas stealing that from me. Big One at Pleasure Beach Resort. When this opened in 1994, it was the world's tallest coaster, so I would give them credit for a really cool name if they had one, but they just called it the Big One. Accurate, but not great. Let me also point out a few rides overseas that nail it, just in a strange way. Ride to Happiness at Plopsaland. I know, this is themed to a music festival, but based on the fact that everyone loves this coaster, the Ride to Happiness seems like a very fitting name. Gooderix at Park Asterix. This Vekoma Looper has a name that means the taste of danger, and based on how much people hate this ride, and how painful it seems to be, you are taking a walk on the wild side if you dare to ride. You can taste the danger, and maybe a little blood too. Insane at Groenelund. I know, they meant to say the ride is insane, but after getting 2 rides, I think they're trying to say you're insane for even trying to ride it, let alone ride it twice like I did. Okay, that was the world's longest list of honorable mentions. Let's get down to it. Number 15, Intimidator 305 at King's Dominion. That's right, Intimidator 305, not Project 305. This was themed to Dale Earnhardt, the NASCAR driver who earned the nickname Intimidator, and this coaster more than earns its name also. It doesn't matter where you are, the parking lot, the Eiffel Tower, riding Racer 75, or even standing directly under it. This Intamin Giga is intimidating. 305 feet tall, that steep, skinny red cable lift rocketing you all the way up. And once it hits the ground, it means even more business. Seeing that train zip around, making moves you don't see on any other coaster. It's a ride that's gonna leave new riders with clammy hands the first time around. Number 14, Colossus at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Here we have what was the world's tallest wooden coaster at 125 feet. This was an icon when it opened in 1978. 2 tracks, 4,300 feet of track, and it just wasn't about the height and length. It was this massive wooden structure right there in the front of the park. This was the first thing you saw when you parked your car. Nobody had seen anything like it up to that point, so Colossus was a very fitting name. Number 13, Traumatizer at Southport Pleasureland. You might know this better as Infusion at Pleasure Beach Resort, formerly Blackpool Pleasure Beach. That's where it moved after Southport Pleasureland closed in 2006. This park owned by Blackpool Pleasure Beach, and even though Southport Pleasureland reopened, their Vekoma SLC already moved to Blackpool. Infusion is a name that means nothing. Traumatizer is an awesome fitting name for a Vekoma SLC. You got those over-the-shoulder restraints that are perfect for head smashing, and a layout that helps the cause. They knew the trauma caused by a ride in an SLC, and at least they're upfront about it. Number 12, Voyage at Holiday World. I know, the main reason for the theme was to fit into the park's Thanksgiving section, referencing the Mayflower and the Pilgrims coming to the New World. But a voyage is also a long journey, and here you have one of the longest coasters in the world, wood or steel. It's currently number 8 overall with 6,442 feet, on a ride that seemingly never ends. The Gravity Group managed to make a ride this long with just one lift hill, and keep it thrilling all the way through. It's not just a voyage, it's a fantastic voyage. Much more fun and less deadly than the voyage it's named after. Number 11, Shikra, Busch Gardens, Tampa. This whole park is full of names that mean something in various African languages, but if you're not in the know, they don't mean anything. These names are chosen with a purpose, and I think the best one is Shikra. This is a bird that's found in Africa and Asia, and it's known for its ability to dive straight down and pick off its prey. If you were going to theme your dive coaster to anything, it doesn't get much better than that. You don't only have that 200-foot vertical first drop, you have another one at 138 feet after the mid-course. So what can I say, it works. Number 10, Tornado at Bakken. There are a bunch of coasters named Tornado, but none more fitting than this Intamin spinner in Denmark. Not only do you feel like you're in a tornado with all that tight spinning, having this coaster set inside and outside was brilliant. You feel like you're the force ripping apart a building. It even has this great facade showing the damage. So, in the end, Tornado isn't a great name, but it fits this coaster so well. From the ride's motion to its theming, it belongs on the list. Number 9, Deja Vu at various Six Flags parks. Boomerangs in general are well named. They go out and then come right back the way they came. A perfect way to describe a shuttle coaster. Flashback at Six Flags New England is pretty good also, but when it comes to boomerangs, nothing is more appropriate than Deja Vu. I'm sure most of you know, Deja Vu is a French term for a feeling that you've already experienced the present situation, and once you go down your 177-foot inverted drop in 3 inversions, and you head up the second spike and get sent through the same course backward, you may feel like you've been there before, because you just were, 15 seconds ago. Number 8, Beast at Kings Island. This was no doubt the most ambitious coaster project of all time in 1979, and it still might be to this day. Over 7,300 feet of wooden track set out in the woods, built by Kings Island's lead engineer Charles Dinh and his team. So, not only is this a beast of a coaster, still the world's longest woody, and seems like the only one that could possibly beat the Beast record is the Beast itself. But the way this is out there on its own, nothing but trees around you, you don't feel like you're anywhere near Kings Island anymore. You're on your own, at the mercy of the Beast. Number 7, Oblivion at Alton Towers. Here we have another dive coaster. In fact, the original. And this is a model that thrives on height, in a park where you can't build above the tree line. So, Alton Towers had to build a lot of this underground. That 180-foot drop going 112 feet down a deep dark hole, and the way it holds you at the top and you look down to the darkness, you feel like you're diving into oblivion. Kind of a dark theme, but then again, it's the UK, is what they do. Number 6, Hades at Mount Olympus. When you theme your coaster to the god of the underworld, you have a lot to live up to, but Mount Olympus and the Gravity Group nailed it. This coaster's main feature is a 140-foot drop into an 800-foot tunnel that runs underneath the parking lot. For those 800 feet going out and 800 feet coming back, you are the god of the underworld of Mount Olympus. Hades is also associated with Satan, even though some Greek mythologists may disagree. And the way this ride beats your brains out, it does seem like it's possessed by some kind of coaster devil, and you'd be cursed to marathon this if you were condemned to the underworld. Number 5, Windjammer at Knott's Berry Farm. This was supposed to be some kind of surfing reference, but it became so appropriate for completely unintended reasons. This was a mess from the start, a rough, boring Togo looping mouse. They hardly ever had both sides running, and it would have to shut down with even a slight wind. Yes, the wind would actually jam the ride and force its closure. It is actually, unintentionally, one of the most accurate names ever. Number 4, Goliath at Six Flags Magic Mountain. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Goliath is an awesome name for a coaster. And when Magic Mountain set the record for the world's tallest coaster, naming that 255-foot coaster after the biblical giant was just epic. You can ignore the story where the giant is brought down by a mere mortal man. That's kind of beside the point. Six Flags has reused this name way too much. We might see this on the bad list coming up next, but this towering coaster as Goliath was spot on. Number 3, Rolling Thunder at Six Flags Great America. You might think it's weird to call a bobsled Rolling Thunder. You see the ones themed to bobsledding, the ones themed to a snake. But when Great America had their Intamin bobsled from 1989 to 1995, they called it Rolling Thunder, and that was the perfect name. If you've ever stood next to one of these, you know why. The wheels of those sleds on that trough. It sounds like the roar of a thunderstorm, and it's loud. This one was super clever and doesn't get talked about enough. Number 2, Mind Eraser SLCs at various parks. There were 5 SLCs named Mind Eraser at some point. Some have been renamed, like Six Flags America in New England. The one at Jaga Lake was renamed Thunderhawk, so that just leaves the one at Darien Lake and the one at Eilish Gardens. We talked about the Traumatizer SLC, but this one's even more specific. It pinpoints the trauma to your head, smashing it around so much, it could cause memory loss. Don't be surprised when you ride Mind Eraser if you come back with a headache. Literally, it's right there in the name. Number 1. El Toro at Six Flags Great Adventure. I have never ridden a bull, but I imagine it's a lot of bucking, a lot of hanging on for dear life, a lot of twists and turns. The bull giving everything it has to toss you off, and that is exactly what El Toro does to its riders. Of course, El Toro was Spanish for the bull, and that first drop, 2 camelbacks and Rolling Thunder Hill gives some of the strongest airtime ever, and you also have those snappy switchbacks at the end, making this intimate prefabricated wooden coaster truly a bull, and the most accurately named coaster I can think of. Now, let's take a look at the top 10 most inaccurate names.
Give her a 10 for looks, and a 3 for her ability to describe herself.
First, a couple coasters that say they're silver, but they're not. Silver Bullet at Knott's has a good western theme, no silver in sight. You also have Silver Streak at Canada's Wonderland, sitting there all black and blue, themed to a train or something. Maybe it's a Canada thing and I just don't get it. Number 10, Harley Quinn Crazy Coaster at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. Yes, you're crazy to ride it, and yes, it's crazy if it was actually ever open. But, coaster? That's debatable. Still, it's on my credit list and nobody's taking that away. Number 9, Wild Thing at Wild Waves. I get it, they wanted to play on the wild theme of the park itself. But when this was at Rocky Point Park in Rhode Island, it was called Loop Corkscrew. That's as accurate as it gets. I wouldn't call this old school era a wild ride, especially not by the time it came to this park in 1997. Number 8, Go Bananas at Wild Adventures. Calm down, it's a Mauer mouse. Apparently, the park felt like this name was over the top, so they renamed it Marsh Mayhem in 2023, which even then is kinda stretching it. Number 7, Eat My Dust at Wallaby Holland. This is a cool name, and the trains have a cool theme, but this wouldn't even get a speeding ticket in a school zone. So, eat my dust indeed. Number 6, Crazy Coaster at the LA and OC fairs. Sometimes these spinning mice coasters are good, but the ones at the fairs, I've found, are terrible. They're super slow and don't spin. So, of all the spinning mice out there, these are the last ones that should be called Crazy Coaster. Number 5, Steel Stella at Clacton Pier. You don't see wooden coasters claim to be steel too often. Sometimes you see the other way around, like Zadra claiming it's a wooden coaster. But here you have the wooden side friction coaster called Steel Stella. I guess the supports are steel, but still, it's all about the track. And that track burned down in 1973. So, sounds like Wood Stella to me. Number 4, Phantom's Revenge and Wildcat's Revenge. These names imply that Kennywood's Steel Phantom and Hershey Park's Wildcat are back and mad about something. But instead of beating our brains in like they used to, now they give ultra smooth, awesome rides. If that's their revenge on us, then fine, you got me. Thank you, sir, can I have another? I really can't wait for Boss Revenge. Number 3, Speed Monster at Tussenfred. Definitely the most lackluster launch and slow elements of any intimate accelerator I've ridden. Speed Monster hits 56 miles an hour and never gets going. So, like I said when I wrote it, it was better off with the name Sludge Monster. Number 2, Goliath at Six Flags Fiesta Texas. This is a great park, but they whiffed on this one. Like we pointed out before, Goliath implies something huge, and for the most part, the Goliath coasters have a case to use the name. This Batman clone makes no sense. It's 105 feet tall, and by my count, it's the 7th tallest coaster in the park. Batman the Ride was still available when this moved to the park in 2008. I'm just saying, it was right there for the taking. Number 1, Hero at Flamingo Land. A hero is supposed to save you, a villain is supposed to hurt you. Based on everything I've heard, and based on my ride on Time Warp, this Zamperla Volare is no hero. It is the anti-hero. It is the farthest possible thing from a hero, playing pinball with your head over 1,300 feet of track. No hero does that, and that's why it takes the number 1 spot for the most inaccurately named coaster. That's all I have. Let me know what you think of the list, and what you would have added, good or bad. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like, and if you're new here and love coasters and their crazy names, please give me a sub. Also, check out my second channel where I post copyright-free off-ride footage. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.